Have you told your friends that you see ghosts?
Oh, absolutely not.
Gina Rodriguez returns in Not Dead Yet.
I'm back, baby!
Who is up?
Oh, she's the obituary writer.
And Brad Garrett joins the brilliant ensemble cast.
Titan, Maverick, Titan of all Mavericks. These are all words used to describe me.
Not Dead Yet. Season premiere. Tonight, 8:30, 7:30 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
We're back with another In Theaters Now episode. I mean, Hereditary's come out, and there's no reason for us to not talk about it. But unlike the two previous ones, this one is really fucking difficult for us to do a spoiler-free discussion. So our advice is just go see the movie. It's great. It's a very good movie. Go see it. Go see it. That's all I can say. Anyone else have anything they want to add in here before we dive into the spoiler stuff?
Do not listen. Don't listen to anything about. Go in completely blank. Like the trailer, I watched the teaser, and then I went in completely blank, and it was a much better experience. So do not listen to this. Even like, oh, I'll just listen to the first part because we're gonna spoil the whole fucking movie for you as soon as we start talking.
Don't listen to this if you haven't seen the movie. If you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I haven't seen the movie, but I'm gonna listen to this. Don't. I don't know how else we can get it across. Don't listen to this.
And, I mean, we warned you. We gave you a full minute of us explaining to you to not listen to the episode. It's on you at this point. All right, guys, let's talk about Hereditary.
So we've got Katie with us, as usual.
Yeah, we got Katie, as always, as is tradition. Hey, Katie.
Hey. I already just don't want to talk about this.
I know. I was feeling the same way. I was like, I'm usually so jazzed to talk about, especially in theaters now, because we have that energy. But this movie is so harrowing. Even just like discussing it, I have a pit in my stomach right now.
So I have a question, though, because usually Katie has seen these movies twice by the time we sit down and record these. Did you see this more than once yet, Katie?
I saw it during South by.
Okay, but you only saw it one time?
No, this is the yeah. I saw it yes, Friday during the day.
The only reason I'm asking that is because I feel like there's probably a lot of shit that I missed in the first time viewing that maybe you caught in the second time. So I'm giving you free reign at any point to be like, yeah, the second time when I saw this, I caught this little hint of like this thing. Because I feel like by the end of the movie, I was very overwhelmed, like sensory wise, of information. Oh, yeah. And was having trouble piecing it together, and I'm hoping that like a second viewing clarifies a little bit of that.
During South by, the director Ari, whenever he did like his Q&A thing, he was like, people are going to see this movie multiple times and catch things that they didn't catch the first time or even the 50th time. So I feel like once this movie comes out on like Blu-ray, people are going to still be finding things that they didn't see the first go around.
I just don't know how much I ever want to watch this movie again.
Exactly.
As much as I liked it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way. It's a witch movie, and I fucking love any good witch movie, and this is one of the best I've ever seen. Like I cannot give it more of a glowing review than saying it is probably the best witch movie I've ever seen, even better than The Witch.
So here's the thought that went through my head as I sat in my car afterwards was like, as a kid, I watched The Omen and Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby and Wicker Man, and I was told that these movies were terrifying and they never really did anything for me. And my parents always kind of had the like, oh, but at the time, like we had never seen anything like that before. And it was really unsettling. And I was like, okay, well then this is our Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, because like I walked away from the theater so unsettled, so uncomfortable, and like not being able to fully comprehend everything that had happened. which I think is a huge. Like I said, that's amazing. I've also seen all of those movies maybe twice at the most because they're not fun for me to watch. They're not a good escape for me.
Yeah.
No.
They're very stressful.
Most of what we do is very much escapism. We don't like torture porn. We don't like realism. We're not watching fucking Zodiac at any time here.
Sorry, Brian.
I know. One of my favorites.
Well, but the thing is that for some reason you may be the most anxious person on the podcast, and yet you're the one who really enjoys serial killers. For me, I want monsters because I know that I'm never going to get fucking killed by one.
There's like an interview with Marilyn Manson that like hits it on the head, where it's just like we're so fascinated about what we're terrified of, that we just want to learn more. And that's kind of how it is. I don't know why. It's almost like every serial killer documentary, every book I read, everything I learn about actual real life serial killers is like my real life 80s montage of just getting ready for that moment. The only time
I can see that
on Facebook, The only time that a serial killer is going to get me is when I'm in the shower and I have soap on my face. And that is the scariest moment of my day every day.
Scott, we finally found a use for your acoustic cover of Rock Until You Drop, as we'll just use it as a montage of Brian reading books and watching
I love it. So we talked about, or Matt talked about, what his reaction was walking out of the theater. I want to go through the other three reactions. I'll start. So I saw it Friday morning at like 10:30 a.m. It was me and two other men in the theater. It was amazing to see it with no one there because I got the surround sound experience, and the sound design in this movie is even unreal. I think it's so much. I remember last time we did an In Theaters Now, I was talking about how great the sound design is for A Quiet Place. I feel like this is as good and possibly better because you're not expecting as much sound design as goes into this, and the soundtrack work. I read the guy's name who did it, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. He killed it for like someone like me who is an aspiring composer. I don't know if I'll ever be that good. He is a master, and I've never heard him before, but of just using very light strings, cello, bassoon, and then some electronic sub bass shit. The tongue clicking being integrated into the soundtrack work is just so good. But what I wanted to say was that I saw it like that with just two other people, and I walk out into this. I stumble out. I literally stumbled out of the theater into the sunlight, and I was so unsettled and dazed, literally dazed. Like I would consider all of us very seasoned horror viewers. Very few things upset us. I was very upset watching this. And so right next door to the movie theater is a World Market. And so I just kind of stumble into the World Market, and I spent 20 plus minutes buying special ginger ales because I just needed to think about anything else. And I'd catch myself thinking about scenes from the movie and just I'd shake my head and try and get those intrusive thoughts out. I don't think any movie has ever affected me like this. Maybe like the first time I saw TCM, maybe.
Yeah, this is I don't want to say it's a 70s throwback because that puts a certain type of movie in people's heads, but it has that 70s aesthetic that has been missing since the 80s. Of that just like go for the gut. We're going all out. We're not like that fearlessness that was in the early 70s movies.
So no, I don't think that was like really the 70s as much as, and we can argue this, but I don't think that was as much the 70s and more that kind of the Toby Hooper, basically, like that they had nothing to lose because they had a shoestring budget and they're just doing something really out there. I guess when I say the 70s, there's a lot of those guys who it was like that post-Vietnam, like we've already seen how awful the world is, so we don't give a fuck anymore type attitude. And like, I mean, given our current political situation, it makes sense that we're getting more and more people that are just like, fuck the system, fuck all the boundaries, we're going for it. Well, one last thing that I want Brian to talk about his experience, but the one thing I will say about this is that I feel like it's interesting that the movies that are the most unsettling right now are family dramas wrapped in horror garb, like A Quiet Place and this, and I mean almost It as well, because it is kind of talking about how the
their
abusers
disconnect
are
from their parents and stuff.
yeah. So anyway, Brian, please.
So I left the theater furious. I saw it on a
You
Friday.
went with Jade, right?
I went with Jade. Jade was so apologetic after the movie because her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend came with us. And like, I don't watch sports, and I've been waiting. Like, this movie was my Super Bowl. Like, I've been waiting for this movie for a very long time, and the crowd really pissed me off towards the end of the movie. But it didn't take away from the fact that I fucking love this movie through and through. I love A24. In my opinion, A24 is just this company that is giving independent films like a mainstream budget. So like they're being able to make these independent films with such high fucking quality and so fucking cool. I really don't want to get into, there's a specific scene that every time I close my eyes, I still see it, but it's so far at the end of the movie, I don't want to bring it up just yet. But I absolutely love this fucking movie. Like I said to Scott a few hours ago, like and I talk about it all the time, like the renaissance of horror. I just wish that there was someone that responsible enough to handle it, but to make like almost a new Scream style movie, because in my opinion, the rules have changed again for horror. And it's more like it's not about death counts. It's not about gore. It is about leaving with a fucking migraine because you are so fucked up over it that your body doesn't even know how to react to the movie. And that's what the movie did for, it seemed like, all three of us. I haven't spoken to Katie about it, but
I had to go to bed. I had such a bad migraine after the movie.
Like, you're just so confused. But there's like, so it's a witch movie. Just to give you like an example of two things that happened that really made me hate the crowd and Jade's friends that we went with. It's a witch movie. Without getting into it, there's some culty shit which involves creepy ass people naked. A lot of the audience, if they saw a penis, laughed.
Come on.
Exactly.
That happened in my theater too. There was a lot of like high schoolers in my screening.
And then
This
like
is not a high schooler movie.
No.
Oh, there was a parent that left with her 10 and 8-year-old from my screening that went until 11 at night.
Oh my God.
Jesus. And like they were laughing at the son so much. And at one point, I don't know if it was Jade's friend's boyfriend or someone next to him, but when they are trying to summon back when they're doing the seance, they were like something like he started crying and he was like, "Mom, please stop." And they're like, "What a bitch." And I'm like, this is a ghost experience. Are you kidding me? Like,
I do want to say one thing. I have a handful of tiny nitpicky complaints. And I think that Peter, for most of the movie, is very good.
I think he
is a terrible crier. Like his crying did not do it for me.
Dude, okay. I've cried like Peter cried in this movie. Like, I have been that scared. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, is that like, and I've seen Toni Collette in a lot of movies, and I did not see Toni Collette. I saw Annie. I saw her without, because she's the star. I mean, Gabriel Byrne is probably almost as famous as Toni Collette. I guess that they're both A-list, but Gabriel Byrne, he was a prick in this movie. I was very unhappy with him. As I understood his character, but you were not supposed to like him, I don't think. But I felt like,
I think you go through levels of liking him because there was times where I'm like, oh, you fucking idiot. Like, and I would get like so angry at him. But then other times where like he tries to defend Peter after Annie has decimated his life. Like you're like, okay, he cares about his kid. And like, that's what makes this movie so compelling, is that at the end of the day, it's actually a movie about two parents and the two different ways that they try to protect their kid, and how they're because they're not on the same page, kind of, they just
for sure.
fuck everything up, basically.
Well, no, we'll get into the logistics of that in a bit here. But what I'm getting at, though, is that I think that I really felt that the crying was very realistic. Like everybody was so, that was what was so draining for me watching this film, was that the grief felt so real. And that's what I try and escape. I watch horror because I don't want the reality of death. I don't want the reality of what's left for the people and the life that they have to build after, like, their kid is murdered by their son. Like, how do you even get past that? You know, it's just, this movie is a really wonderful, realistic, it's wonderful in a terrible way, but it's kind of like, you know how people, I have not seen it, but people talk about Antichrist being kind of like the embodiment of trying to continue a marriage after such a horrible, traumatic experience. And it's, you know, a stylized ideal of that. And people, I feel like this is very similar to Antichrist, where these are not, yes, we get a lot more unreality in this film. And I went and I watched or read a bunch of people's discussions about this on Reddit and a couple online articles, and the people's gripes, and on Facebook, the people's gripes are so stupid because people went to this thinking that it was going to be like the fucking Conjuring, and the Conjuring is entertainment. This is not entertainment. This is actual art.
Oh, yeah. I feel like people think that this was like a Friday night date night movie.
No fucking way.
No.
You're meant to watch this movie by yourself. It's
I would never watch this. I wouldn't watch this with anybody. I would never make Megan watch this. She liked horror movies.
Yeah. And I told you, I said your wife would never watch this movie ever.
No, and it's also, I love the bait and switch. People were really pissed because they thought that the last 20 minutes or so were rushed, and I'm like, my feeling, my only gripe about this movie is that I felt that the pacing was very Lynchian and very slow at the beginning. Like, that first hour was really hard for me, not necessarily because I think that they did a bad job of it. It's that it was excruciating. It's like pulling your fingernails out with pliers, watching Toni Collette writhing on the floor saying, I just want to die. You know, like, that was one of the most horrible things. I don't watch dramas because I don't want that in my life.
Going through the second time watching it, it's way worse than the first time because you know what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And that's pretty much, like, the first time I saw the movie, I had only heard the, because no one had really seen it yet except for, I think, at, like, one festival where they were talking about how, like, people were leaving and, like, they were, like, people, like, were having, like, heart palpitations or whatever. I don't know. And then I was like, okay, I have to see this. So the first time I saw it was at midnight during South by, which they just, like, do, like, the midnight movies there. And after this movie, Elijah Wood was there, and so it made it a little bit better at the end. But I, like, laid in bed for, like, 2 hours after I got home and just thought about the movie.
Yeah.
And I was going to go see it on Thursday night, and I had tickets for it. And then I got a refund because I just couldn't handle it yet that night.
Yeah.
And so I went during the day thinking that it would have been better the second time around. And it was not better. It was so dreadful knowing what was coming. And I feel like this episode is going to be probably, like, the most, like, depressing episode that you guys.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I was even if the ending was quote unquote rushed, like, I was fine with it if it was, because I just remember by the end of that movie just being like, I just want this to be over. Like,
yeah.
I just, like,
dude, I felt that way so 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
Like, when Toni Collette is writhing on the floor,
sure.
I was like, get me out of here. But I needed to see it through. And I knew that it was 2 hours and 10 minutes. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. The one thing, as shitty as the crowd was, the one thing that movie could shut up even a high school crowd was when Charlie gets decapitated. And I think that the best thing that they could have done as writers, directors, whoever it was that accident happened, the whole theater gasped, and then Peter just sat there. and everyone just sat. My hand covered my mouth for a good 30 seconds.
Me too.
Because
Yeah.
he just sat there, and we were
yeah.
all just like waiting for some sort of reaction, and it was.
You just get a single couple tears in his eyes.
Yeah, and then it just goes right into the mom, just those fucking screams, like her going out to the car, and then the screams. Oh man.
Well, and like
and you didn't know her head was gone yet.
No,
that's the worst part. And then they show it to you. There's a good 30 seconds of just the fucking head with ants and flies on it.
Oh yeah,
that's horror.
I thought they were going to take it out. I definitely thought that they were not going to let them release that to a widespread audience, showing that. And so I was really surprised that it was still in the movie because my jaw literally dropped open when that happened. I was like, "Holy fuck!"
But I think they have to for the ending shot where the head's on top of the statue. Like they have to show it. I don't think they need to show it for 30 seconds.
That's another thing I noticed the second time around. Well, do you guys want to get into the movie now, or do you want to?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to throw out one more thing because we're already on the topic. I remember watching the movie and thinking like, what the fuck, Peter? Like, you got to tell somebody what happened. And then in my head, I'm like, all right, well, what if I got in a car accident and killed one of my siblings? Like, I don't know how, like, I can't even comprehend how I would react. And I feel like, no, I probably would have just gone into like a comatose state and just been like, okay,
well, he doesn't even.
I've got to separate myself from this and just pretend it didn't happen.
He didn't even want to look in the back seat from the rear view mirror. He looks up and then immediately looks away. But so like you said earlier about catching things second time around, when they're driving to the party and they look at the telephone pole, and it kind of pans across the pole and it has the symbols.
The sign on it.
On the pole that she gets decapitated by.
We got to talk about, in Halloween when Jamie is or Laurie is in class and is talking when the teacher's like fate is blah blah and it's the same thing where in the class at the end right before Peter smashes his face into the desk, the teacher is talking about how is it more tragic to create your own folly or to be under the power of someone else.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, that's heavy as shit. That's a starting point. Let's just go there. Katie, since you've seen this twice, I'm curious how many other of the class lessons are tied that deeply into the plot of the movie.
I honestly didn't really pay attention that much to those. Just because I was the second time around, I was more trying to find other stuff that was like more of like, I guess like visual instead of actually what was happening.
Because they do talk about like, like there's a lot of conversations of fate. I remember in the classrooms and a lot of conversations about like tragedies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what they're talking about a Shakespeare play
Hamlet?
at one point.
Macbeth.
And I guess I'd have to reread Macbeth, but I'm willing to bet that you could probably tie Peter killing Charlie to Macbeth. And there are witches in Macbeth.
The three, which is actually something I had not thought about, but yeah, that the witch part of Macbeth, yeah.
And like those fucking movies, it's almost like Fight Club. Or do you remember Fight Club when he finds out like Tyler Durden is him, and then it goes to like that quick flashback.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, and it gives that quick flashback of just everything that happened previously.
And it's him. Yeah,
that happened to me. Like as soon as the movie ended, everything flashback. Like one of the most important parts of the movie, which is her explaining the fact that like she wasn't really close with the grandmother too much. She kept the grandmother away from Peter, so she couldn't be in contact with him and didn't really let her in the life until Charlie was there, because that really answered the one question, which is like, well, why did they need to put Charlie in Peter's body? Because the grandmother had no contact with Peter whatsoever. Yeah. So
you go back when you watch it.
Yeah.
The part that I found very, very disturbing was when Annie is making the miniatures. They're not necessarily like true life experiences, but they're almost like an allegory for the shit that happens, but they're also kind of premonition slash post premonition, like look behind the veil of, because Annie's entire life has been dictated by this cult of Paimon. When she is the most important scene, I think, in the beginning of the movie is when she goes to the grief support group and she spills her guts about her childhood, and she says that her mom had DID, dissociative identity disorder, and had a hard life, and then her father starved himself to death, and then her brother, Annie's brother, killed himself because he said that they were trying to put spirits inside him. So this is the timeline that I have put together. This is just a pet theory, and I'm sure that it's like 75% correct. But so this cult of Paimon, Lynn, I believe is the grandmother's name. She and her husband try to bring Paimon into the grandfather's body. It either doesn't work or it works, and then he starves Paimon out. And so he dies, and then Lynn tries to put Paimon in Annie's brother. Her brother kills himself, so it doesn't work. And then so she forces Annie to have a kid. And remember, Annie says, I tried everything.
What about, what's her name? Jane, what's her name? Joan? Her son and his son died too. I wonder if they tried to put them.
Yeah, they tried to put them in the sun. Yeah, but there's also this theory about that I read on Reddit about how you need to have 3 heads to summon Paimon as part of the ritual. So I'm not exactly sure if maybe the grandfather, Lynn's husband, had to die to help summon Paimon. I don't really know. And you also, when you see the woodcut of Paimon, I believe he is holding 3 heads. So this 3 is a really important number because Lynn's head, Annie's head, and what's the dad's name?
Steve. His name's Steve.
Steve. Yeah. Oh, but that doesn't make sense because you never see Steve's head. He loses his head after he's burnt to a crisp, but Charlie is also decapitated. So I don't know where the 3 are specifically for that, but there were 3. There I believe were 3 dead bodies with their heads off in the treehouse when they crown Peter as Paimon at the very end. So that's important. But so yeah, I think that Joni's son and grandson might have also been an attempt but failed. But I don't know if that was for sure or if they were trying to get heads for it. So I don't know if we really need to know. It's just that was part of the whole cult's trial. And then we get and also the woman who plays Joan is the head mistress in The Handmaid's Tale, and she plays creepy really well.
Oh yeah, every role
so
that she's in, she does really well, being like that weird, like hospitable, nice lady that actually turns out to be a fucking nightmare.
So I wanted to bring up 2 things. First, just because I wanted to check IMDb to see if there was any interesting facts. There's really not too much because it's still so early. But one of the things says that in Peter's first scene at school, the words "escaping fate" is written on the chalkboard behind the teacher, which also, clearly part of the plot line, and it's also an homage to Halloween because that's written behind the teacher in the classroom scene.
Oh, okay. So I was pretty close. Very nice.
Oh, wow.
One of the things that I think is very interesting, and it's also very off-putting and upsetting, is how Annie's work further pushes the movie. And I'm thinking of 2 things. More disturbing than Charlie's head, more disturbing than Peter's reaction to me is when you see that Annie is now making a recreation of the murder site
accident. That was pretty fucked up. And then Steve comes in and he is not shocked. He's just kind of annoyed.
Yeah. But the other thing is there's a line of dialogue where Annie says to Charlie, your grandmother loved you so much she wouldn't even let me feed you. And, you would think that would mean bottle fed. And then the very next scene, she turns around one of the one of the things, and it's her trying to breastfeed a baby with the mother pulling down her shirt.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like I remember,
Yeah,
like,
that's super disturbing.
Yeah.
I love
Her poor husband.
Oh yeah.
He's just trying to be such a good dad and keep everything together, like to the point where when like the grave gets like desecrated, he's like he doesn't say anything to her or anything like that and just tries to keep everything under wraps. And then finally he's just like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Before we get into any more, I have some lighthearted fun fact about the movie.
I can't imagine what they are.
I don't know if you want to do it now or at the end.
no, let's
Let's
break
have a
it up
little
little
breather.
Yeah.
Okay. The set, the little miniatures, those were all created before the movie was filmed. And the person who made the set design is by God, what's his name? Steve Newbern, and he's the one who did Team America. He made
I love it.
and the miniatures for Team America.
Can I just ask, did anyone else love, one of the things I genuinely loved was what they did as far as marketing with the commercial, where they took the scene where Peter looks at himself, his reflection, and smirks and then slams his face on the desk over and over again, that everybody in the theater jumped at that scene because everyone was expecting him to slam his face down on the desk, but it's actually two completely different scenes.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know at the same time. I was like, oh, here it comes. He's going to slam his face. And then it didn't. I'm like, did they change something?
Yeah. Yeah. Like everybody jumped and it was nothing.
I'm so glad that I didn't. I watched that 30-second stinger teaser right. I think it was actually right before it went to South by, and I made a pact with myself that I would not watch anything, not read anything. If the word Hereditary came up, I was Xing out of the page, and that was the best and worst thing I could have done to see this movie. This was like such a true cinematic experience, though, because. And I was messaging with Katie after I got out because I was so upset. And I'm like, I got there late and I still had to sit through like 4 previews. And previews don't need to be 2 minutes long with all the expositions and explosions.
Oh
and
my
we
God.
just need 30 seconds to get you interested in the movie. That's all I want anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of weird because it's like, what exactly do you even show as a preview before this movie? Like, there's nothing. I got a lot of comedies. Like, I was like, they don't know what to do to send before this movie.
The only movie that it probably isn't a good movie, but I think I have hope for it and I really want to see it. And I can't think of the name, but it is the one with Harold from Howard and Kumar, where he is trying to find out where his daughter is. Like, that might be a fucking great movie or it might be a terrible movie, but I'm 100% going to see it.
I like the idea that it looks like everything's done via social media, which is kind of interesting.
It showed during South by and it got pretty good reviews. It was just playing at a time that I couldn't go see it, but I really wanted to see it. I think it's called Ken.
It's called Searching, I think.
No, Ken is the one. Ken is the one where the kid finds like the alien gun.
Yeah, that looks sweet.
That one looks dope as fuck.
Yeah, it looks like mindless action. That I'm
I know I'm the only one who's going to see the Meg in theaters, but I'm really excited for the Meg.
I'm totally going to see that in theaters.
I have Movie Pass, so I'll probably see it.
Yeah. I guess I'm the only one who won't see it because I don't have Movie Pass and I can't sit through Jason Statham in a theater. I'll do it at VOD for sure, but not.
I just love shark movies so goddamn much, and they're mostly terrible.
Why? It's like they trick you. They gave you Jaws, and then every shark movie after Jaws, you're just hoping, like, maybe this one will be a Jaws. It's never a Jaws.
It's never a Jaws. It's more Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah, the closest I've ever gotten to it being like a Jaws was Piranha 3D. It opened.
That is not like a Jaws.
It opened like Jaws.
It opened like Jaws because it's got the same fucking actor.
Yeah, it's Richard Dreyfuss sitting on a boat singing "Show Me the Way to Go Home."
That is not a Jaws. Another lighthearted fact, and I don't know if Matt said this and I didn't bring it up, but this movie trailer was accidentally shown at a screening of Peter Rabbit in Australia.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Holy fuck.
There's nothing that makes me happier than when a horror trailer accidentally plays before a children's movie, because it's never like a light-hearted horror film, like a horror comedy. It's always the most horrific. Like, I think it played before something. Like, it's always the most disturbing possible thing.
And this trailer scared me. Like, when I first saw the trailer, it scared me. So I couldn't imagine being 7 and just wanting to watch Peter Cottontail or Peter Rabbit and then seeing a kid slam his face on a desk over and over again.
Well, so I want to talk about one thing, because I always think of the trailer when I think about this. And this movie has some beautiful camera work.
Oh my God.
And it's like,
oh damn,
it's stuff that if it was handled differently, it would have been like too showy or too flashy. But it either like you have the scene in Charlie's funeral that they used in the trailer, where like the camera just keeps panning down and then you're like entering the dirt a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's like moments like that where you're just forced to linger on it, but it's different than just a static shot.
Mm-hmm.
But then also they go with like like her running upside down and the camera zooming around her head, which is similar to something that's Sam Raimi does in the first Evil Dead movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you know, if the whole movie was shot like that, it wouldn't have worked. But now that we're building towards like all of the craziness, like it throws you off. And it's like very well thought out when they did specific camera tricks versus when they just let people sit and linger. Like the fact that the camera doesn't move when Peter's just sitting in the car. Like whoever was the cinematographer in this movie did a fantastic job knowing when the right place was to do a stylistic choice and when there was the right place to not do a stylistic choice.
Yeah. The thing about this movie that also blows my mind is that this is the director's directorial debut. This is his first movie that isn't a short. And he is like the nicest, and he's just like this goofy dude who was like
Ari Aster.
Yeah,
right?
he was just joking around after the movie when they were doing like the Q&A afterwards. He like reminds me of what's the guy who did Black Swan? Darren Aronofsky. They did like a Q&A thing during South by, and he was the most normal dude ever. And so I feel like we're going to see more from this director along the lines like that, more so movies like this.
Because you were there for the Q&A, and there's one thing, and it's kind of part of the reason why I don't like It Follows that much. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I don't like It Follows that much. I think it's fine. But I remember hearing that during like all of the Q&As with that director, people would ask him like, well, what was this about? Or what did this mean? And he just goes, well, what do you think?
Yeah, he did.
Like, was this guy actually willing to answer people's questions? Because there's something that pisses me off about that unreasonably.
Yeah, he answered a lot of stuff. Like a lot of people ask about like the score. They asked about like the acting process, and there was one question, I'm trying to remember what it was, that he went into depth into it for like 10 minutes during the Q&A. I think it was just really just how he decided to push everything out and make like the slow burn, because someone was like, this is like your first real movie, how you took a risk by making it a slow burn and then just blow up at the end, which they compared him to Ty West. And I don't know if I know how y'all feel about him, but
I enjoy Ty West. I just don't think that he's like the savior of horror.
He sure isn't.
Oh God, there it is. That's what I was waiting for.
Well, no, I loved House of the Devil. House of the Devil is amazing. It was
Me too, man.
An amazing film, but he hasn't done anything that I've liked since. I've been so incredibly disappointed.
Yeah, I've enjoyed The Innkeepers, but that's about it.
I love that movie, and Scott knows that I love that movie.
I hate you.
It's okay.
So one of the things that I was curious about, and so she throws the book into the fireplace, and it starts to set her on fire. But then she throws it in the fireplace, and it causes Steve to burst into flames. Do we have any clue why that change happened, or
because I think that it was just obfuscation at first, and they really wanted Annie's head. They didn't want Steve's head.
It's just, I think maybe because she was skeptical at first, and she was like, I want to get rid of this thing, and then I don't know.
She wasn't skeptical when she tried to burn it the first time, though. That was
Yeah.
after the seance.
Yeah, she'd already been possessed by Charlie briefly.
Yeah, and that was the scene, not the book scene, but speaking of her head, that's the scene that for the past 2 days, if I close my eyes, it's the first thing I see is just her cutting off her own head, staring at Pete. Like that.
Oh
scene
God, and the sound effect is
it's just tattooed in my mind right now.
I'll be honest, the other part, and I feel like in any other movie I would have been like, that's so fucking stupid. But her just banging her head against the ceiling.
Oh God!
Like
that was my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Yeah,
it was just the perfect amount of time.
But like any other movie, I feel like a lesser movie, I would have been like, oh great, we're doing this. but like in this movie, I was like, oh fuck! I feel like I've seen that exact same thing in Insidious, and I've been like, oh. But like for some reason, it just works in this movie because I feel like it earned it in this movie. But yeah, dude, like. The last couple scenes with Peter, when he runs up into that attic, and I'm just like, oh no, there's a dead body up there, bro. This is only getting worse.
Yeah.
Why would you go up in the attic? I never understood that when people have there's a home invasion or something's getting them, they go upstairs. I'm like, go out the front fucking door.
But also, there was a naked man by the front door, I think. Right? Right? I don't know the layout of their house, but right when he was looking at
that house seems massive.
Yeah, it was a big house. Right in the doorway was that creepy guy just smiling.
Oh god, and you know what? This movie does a lot of what made me love the original Strangers, is that there's just things with no musical cue to say. Like if you don't pay attention and you don't see it happening, sorry, like you just missed it. But
there's whenever there's a scene where he takes a huge bong rip in his room and he goes to blow it out the window, and it's the camera's showing him from the field. And you can see someone breathing in the cold air. You can see their breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also really like the beginning of this movie a lot, too. I like the idea of just it just starts off with the obituary. I was a big fan of that.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about the tongue clicks.
Yeah.
All right, that was it.
All right, on to the next topic. No, for something so simple, those tongue clicks, and they were so spread out that you were waiting for them. And yeah, the surround sound, there were people behind you. Thought it was assholes in the crowd, but it was the movie.
There was a couple times where I almost yelled at people for talking in the crowd, and then I realized it was just whispers mixed into the sound. I was like... I was on edge. I normally I'm just like, yeah, if people are going to be assholes in theaters, I'm not saying anything. That's not my business. I was so on edge. I just wanted to be like, shut the fuck up, everybody. Yeah. It was the movie. It wasn't even anybody.
Oh, man. That would be so funny. Everyone's just quietly watching the movie, and Matt just stands up and is like, shut up, shut up, shut up, and then runs out.
I might add to it.
Yeah, this movie was... I don't know when I'm going to sit down and watch it again. Probably not for years.
It was a couple months for me, and it still is not long enough.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing this with y'all, I would not have watched it.
Yeah, you comparing him to Darren Aronofsky, this movie reminds me of how I felt when I watched Requiem for a Dream. I was like, that was a very good movie. I will never watch it again.
Watch it again. Yeah, I was halfway through that movie, and I was like, is it over yet?
Which is so, and it's weird. It's nice that we occasionally get to do these types of movies with the in theaters now, because we could never do an actual horror movie night episode on this shit. Nor would I want to watch a movie like this for a horror movie night, because again, it's something I go to do for fun, to get me out of my dreary day, not to get more depressed.
I have another thing that I noticed. I don't know when this is gonna bring in, but where Charlie has the talk with her mom about, I guess maybe it's in the bedroom, or I don't remember where it was at, where they said that the grandma wanted her to be a boy. And at her funeral, she's buried in a blue coffin, which is...
Oh, nice.
I didn't notice that second part.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a fun fact. So I just went to hop on to... I was like, let me rate this movie on Netflix before I forget to, because I still do the discs. And if I don't rate it, then it'll start recommending it to me.
What year is it?
I know. So when you go to a movies page, underneath it, it says like, you might also enjoy. And I'll take a snapshot because 3 of the 5 suggestions are just TV movies of the Naked Boys band, which is what Peter did before he was in this movie.
Yeah, him and his brother. He was actually in My Friend Dahmer, and he did really good in that movie too.
Yeah, I love that movie.
We won't go back to how I embarrassed myself to him, so we'll just go ahead and move on.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that story.
I told Jade that when we were walking into the theater. I said, yeah, the guy that was in this movie, this girl that's on our podcast, Katie, met him and confused him for his brother.
Yeah. And then I got to sit next to him for the whole 2.5 hours. And so that was cool. Fucking hell. There's a lot of stuff that kind of annoyed me. Where people, and I'm like one of those people that'll go watch a trailer and then I'll read the comments just to see how fucking stupid everyone is. When this trailer first came out, there were so many people talking shit about the way that the girl looked in it.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's so fucked up.
And because that's what she looks like in real life.
Yeah. And also she was
palate.
Matilda. Well, I think that, yeah, she has a cleft palate, but I also wonder, does she have that disorder, that genetic disorder that the guy from Stranger Things has?
Maybe.
Because I can't tell.
that.
I can't tell by her teeth.
I mean, at South by, she looked the same, but like, I mean, she obviously had her hair done like she probably does every single day and like wore like normal clothes.
Right.
But I think he did a really good job at like what they were wearing. Like a kid that's 13 years old definitely wears an oversized hoodie and stuff like that. I hate when they try to make children more mature than they are in movies, like where they make them dress really nice. It's like I have a 10-year-old sister and she fucking wears the worst outfits. So I hate when they like sit, like they always like make them wear like really nice outfits. And it's just like, that's not what fucking kids wear. Okay. And their hair isn't always done. My sister's hair is the greasiest thing I've ever fucking seen at all times.
Yeah. Cause you have to like,
Isn't it your job to like tell her not to look like that?
No, that's not my job. Not my kid.
What a great sister.
Right. That's my job in high school. Not now. I don't care.
So I want to talk a little bit about the nut allergy, rather.
Yeah.
So when you see Charlie at the funeral, she takes the candy bar out and she takes a bite and it crunches. And then Steve comes up and says, "Are there nuts in that?" And she shakes her head, "No." And that really confused me because I love that they said and they showed instead of said that she has a severe nut allergy, because then Annie is like, "Are there nuts in that? Because we don't have the EpiPen here." I loved that. But I believe that crunching implies that there were nuts in it, right? Like that's the way I saw it.
No, because there's not like there's not nuts in a crackle.
Okay, well, this is why I think that, because so you hear like nuts kind of you hear something crackling, cracking, crunching, whatever when she's eating that candy bar, and that kind of put it in my mind like, okay, they think she has an allergy. Are they just because at this point I didn't know it was a witch movie. We're like at the hour and 45-minute mark before you really catch on that there's a witch movie going on, which I loved. I think that the runtime could have been a little tighter. That's really a very small gripe, but when you actually find out it's a witch movie, I was so relieved because I didn't want it to be a mental health thing where I didn't want it to be like Tyler Durden where Annie is doing all this shit and just thinking that it's
not realizing it.
Yeah, that would have been.
And
they
put that in your head with the sleepwalking stuff.
Well, the sleepwalking is cool because it means that she could only be compelled to do things when she was awake. When she's asleep, it's like her id knows that there's something wrong with her children, and that's why she was going to douse her whole family in paint thinner and light them on fire so that they could not be sacrificed to Paimon.
Yeah,
which I think was really cool. But back to the whole. So I mentioned this earlier on how the tragedy of Hereditary is that no one really has any sort of. No one's going to get out of this alive. everything has been architected by the cult so that everything happens exactly as planned. Like when they go past on the way to the. So first of all, Peter wants to go to the party. Somebody invites him to that party. I'm gonna guess that it was probably somebody that's involved in the cult, because that cult has its hooks in every part of their lives.
The high school party?
Second.
No, his friend texts him about it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I know, but I'm saying that I'm pretty sure that there's somebody.
That friend could be tied to somebody that's tied to the cult.
I want to rewatch that end scene because there are teenagers up in the treehouse, and I wonder if some of them show up in the party.
Yeah.
So anyway, Peter gets invited to this party, and he tells Annie he wants to go. She's like, "Are you going to take your sister?" And Charlie doesn't want to go, but Annie makes him take her. And as they drive past the pole that eventually decapitates Charlie, you see the symbol on it. You also see the symbol on Annie when she's doing the eulogy and on Lynn when she's in the casket. So even Annie is under the control of the cult and she doesn't realize it. So they go to the party and the girl is chopping nuts and Peter is just like, I want to go smoke a bowl. So he tells Charlie to go get a piece of cake. Why is that girl chopping nuts? There are no nuts on that chocolate cake.
No, there are.
That's because no, there were not. There is not. It was a chocolate cake. They used the same knife, and that's how she had an anaphylactic reaction. But I really think that means that the cult had something to do with that party. But also, I wonder if she didn't really have a nut allergy. I wonder if she didn't because she's eating that chocolate bar, and I wonder if they're implying that Paimon is inside Charlie. And when you read the Wikipedia about Paimon, it says that the demon, the king of hell, Paimon, covets a male body, but it's also shown in the Lesser Seals of Solomon as having a man with a woman's face, which I thought was a very interesting addition because it's saying like, Charlie says, Grandma wanted me to be a boy. Also, Lynn wanted Annie to be a boy, by the way. So it's a hereditary thing, which goes back to the title. I love that. But so they go to the party. I wonder if that anaphylactic reaction was Paimon trying to get Peter to speed home, and then they put the deer in front of that pole so that it could be architected to decapitate Charlie because that's the way he had to get out of the body. Yeah. Because Paimon is in.
Yeah, it says in the Wikipedia page that Anne concludes that Ellen allowed Charlie to be possessed by Paimon at her birth.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that at all.
Yeah. They wanted Peter, and Annie kept Lynn. Is it Ellen or Lynn?
It's Ellen.
Ellen. Okay, sorry, my bad. So the grandma wanted Peter to be the vessel, and Annie would not let her near him. So that's why they went to Charlie with the expectation that sometime down the road they'll kill her off. And I loved the visual of that light that kind of like pushes towards something. And
it's a much more subtle like Donnie Darko.
Yeah,
in a way, like
so
the way
much
that
better than Donnie Darko.
like,
Yeah,
coming out of people.
Yeah, but that's the sign of Paimon having sway over someone, which I think is very, very cool because after everything happens and Paimon cannot occupy a live body. That's why Joan is saying, Peter, I expel you. She's basically like saying you need to die so the Paimon can inhabit your body. So he jumps out the window at the end, dies, and then when he comes back to life, that's when the light goes inside him. That's Paimon. So when he stands up, that's Paimon / Charlie. And I thought that it was odd that they called him Charlie and say, your body has been correct. Your original female body has been corrected. This is a male vessel for you, blah, blah, blah. I think it was interesting that Paimon was Charlie for 13 years. And so they're still calling him by the name, which is also normally a man's name. Mm-hmm. But they named a girl Charlie.
And it's the name of Ellen's husband and Anne's grandfather. In the obituary, it says that she was married to Charlie.
Cool. I was going to ask because when she goes through the box where they make the doormats, there was one that said Annie and Charles. And I was like, who the fuck is Charles? So that makes sense.
Yeah. Talking about how you thought it was kind of weird that they called Peter Charlie in that scene. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I guess it's not like a obviously I love this movie and I will probably always like this movie. But I feel like it's weird that Peter seems so confused by everything if he is Paimon at this point. Like at that point, I almost wish that he had like a sinister smile or something to kind of...
That would have ruined it.
But if
that would have absolutely been way too much like Truth or Dare.
Well, no. I don't mean like the I just mean like him actually being excited. Like, I don't know. He just looks dumbfounded. Like it like I was looking at his face. I'm like, so did the whole thing fail? And Peter's just like not sure what's going on anymore.
The point was to try to get Charlie into Peter's body in order for everything to happen. This is what I got out of it. So then the reason I got that out of it is if you look at Peter's face at the end of the movie when he is walking and his reaction to things and how he's looking at things, it is so identical to Charlie's reaction at like the funeral, everything that she looks at with this like done like from when she looks at her grandmother to when she looks at like the people at the thing. It's like almost identical, their reactions to everything.
Yeah, he looks so much like Charlie when she's walking out into the field.
Yeah, and she's just like got like an interesting look. That's what I think. I mean, I don't fucking know. This movie is much smarter than me.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'll accept that.
Also, that field scene where she walks out there and there's just an old grandma with perfectly done hair just sitting in front of a fire, which is awesome.
I believe that's a burning body. I think that's a premonition of Steve burning. Pretty sure.
Also, I sent A24 came out with this calendar that I sent Scott.
And I wouldn't click on it because I didn't want to have anything spoiled for me. That's how insane I was about no spoilers.
You could have watched the first hour of this movie and not have been spoiled.
Well, I didn't know that at the time.
Well, so this calendar, A24 came out with this calendar, and it's called Evil Grandma's Wall Calendar, and it's just grandmas doing the work. There's like one where there's a cake with 666 on it with just like the normal like kid birthday candles, and she's lighting a cigarette off of it. And there's another one of this Asian grandma who just made it's for December, that she made a gingerbread house, and she lit it on fire. And she's like, it looks fucking cool. I really want it, but it's $30.
No. So I there are other things that I wanted to talk about, but I don't even remember now.
I was gonna say we've gone an hour. I'm not sure if there's anything else anyone wants to throw in there.
I kind of want to throw. I said something to Scott on Friday about it. How this movie kind of reminds me of Rosemary's Baby at the end.
Yeah, no, that's why I compared it to that earlier on, because it does have that, like, it very much reminds me of, probably of all the movies I named, it reminds me the most of Rosemary's Baby.
It's just, I love that when they, like, it gave me, like, a flashback to Rosemary's Baby, like, the first time I saw it, where I was like, holy shit, these old people are fucking worshiping Satan. And it's just such like a weird feeling to see like old people doing stuff like that. But I'm guessing in the world today, there's probably a shitload of people who still do things like that.
Well, you know, after you said that to me, it kind of I ruminated on it because I was thinking back at the end of this, Joan is leading the cult in saying, "Hail Paimon." And it reminded me, you're right, of at the end of Rosemary's Baby when the cult the coven is there and they go, "Hail Satan, God is dead." Very, very similar. And I'm sure that that's on purpose. And I think that's an okay, I don't want to call it a throwback, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're all in agreement that we absolutely do not want them to make a second movie, correct?
Fuck no. How could you make a second
They
one?
won't. It's A24.
Yeah. Guy, they won't. Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they're going to make 9 because there are 9 kings of hell and we only saw one come to Earth.
I mean, my sequel space is all saved up for this year, man. I got the new Halloween. I got the new Puppet Master coming out. I mean...
We finished casting it seemed.
Yeah.
How stoked are we all that Jessica Chastain is going to be adult Bevy? I'm
Fuck yeah. I love the cast. They released it, was it yesterday or the day before, of all of the kids?
I don't know.
Yeah, they released they released every character. There's a couple of them that I didn't recognize. The one who's playing Ben, I don't know who he is.
I'm fine with that, though. I think that the less like I know a lot of people had that opinion. I'd rather them go with a couple lesser known actors since the movie's going to make a shit ton of money regardless, and it always helps when you don't recognize the actors from like 1,000 other movies. So you can just kind of ease right into buying them as like, yeah, no, that's Grown Up Ben.
I'm excited to
shit, Bill Hader's in it.
I'm excited to see James McAvoy try and do Billy, because I think it's going to be a hard role for him to play it down so much, since he normally plays roles that are so like high strung. So I think that'll be really good. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the Halloween trailer. I purposely did not watch any teasers. I didn't watch the trailer when it was posted on YouTube because I thought they were going to play it before this movie. And I was so furious that they didn't play on the big screen.
Yeah.
And then after the movie, I went and immediately watched it on YouTube afterwards. And I was so upset that I didn't get to watch the trailer in the actual theater.
You'll see it soon enough. Before the Meg, maybe.
So all I really have to say about this, all I have left is that the movie was fucking great. A24 is my godsend. My next Super Bowl coming up isn't a horror. It's 8th Grade. They're putting out, written and directed by Bo Burnham, that I am seeing opening night.
That movie's
and I
great.
fucking love A24.
It's really good.
Oh, see, I'm so excited. And A24, the only thing they've done is they have just they kind of keep me from writing, because there's always been a part of me that wanted to like make a movie, and then A24 came out and I'm like, yeah, I'm not built for this. These people are way too good. I can't make movies like this. Stick to making jokes about horror movies, and that's where I am on this podcast. That's all I have to say.
There's more of Horror Movie Night to come from here. Obviously, we'll probably be funnier. Yeah, this movie's great. I don't think we'll be doing another one of these until probably Halloween. But yeah, soon enough. I'm still going to go see the Meg.
We know you're seeing the Meg. No one doubted you when you said it.
The first 4 times.
Hey guys, you want to see the Meg?
I'll see that movie with you and we can just talk about it because I want to see it.
Yeah, let's. Does it come out in September? We can skip Fright Fest and just see the Meg.
I don't know. Do we have to do in theaters now for horror? Because I wouldn't mind doing one next week for Incredibles 2. That way I can convince Jade to go with me.
After this one, she probably won't be going to movies with you for a while.
No, she probably loved it.
She did.
She's a horror mom.
Yeah, she actually did. Believe it or not, she really enjoyed it. She kept apologizing for her friends for not enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. I asked my friend to go watch it, and she saw the trailer, and she sent me like 20 texts in a row. She's like, hell no, hell fucking no. I remember when you saw this in March. Fuck no. I can't believe you even asked me to watch this. Fuck you.
Why don't you tell her that we're going to do an episode for it, and we don't?
Oh, that works. Like a liar. I like it.
Well, just say you got confused, and I said that I was seeing it for an in theaters now for the Disney podcast, and you just got confused.
I like it.
Horror Movie Night, orchestrating lies to your girlfriends live.
I'll just say, hey, we're going to see Upgrade. And then when we get there, be like, yeah, they upgraded Incredibles to a sequel. We're here.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.